And we're back with plenty more games to discuss, including one that I've had a chance to play that Janet talked about a couple episodes back, playing it at a preview event. But now the new game from Bloober, Cronos: The New Dawn. Which is a brand new world, not a sequel or a brand extension, which has kind of been the mix of what Bloober has done in the past, working with sort of existing properties to some to great effect like Silent Hill 2, some to lesser effect like the Blair Witch Project game. But Cronos: The New Dawn comes off the pretty highly acclaimed Silent Hill 2 remake. At the very least, it wasn't. Most people don't consider it a complete disaster, which was the expectation going in. And so I think there has been some reasonable expectation that, hey, is this a studio, which there aren't that many studios that focus explicitly on horror. It's why I've always been rooting for Bloober, even if I have not liked most of what they've made. It's like having a studio that wants to make like AA, like mid-budget horror as their lane is really excited because horror is just an interesting space where there's like the occasional AAA thing from like Capcom Resident Evil, and then it's all lo-fi indie stuff. And I like that stuff, but also sometimes it rips to have like a budget on a horror game. So I've been rooting for Bloober to kind of figure it out. I've been rooting for Cronos: The New Dawn to be at least interesting. And so I have played 4-ish hours. I've almost finished the first main section out of the opening of the game. I've made it to this kind of apartment complex that you're investigating. This sort of the first main area outside of the tutorial area. The setup of Cronos: The New Dawn, which Shannon went over in the previous podcast, is you're a character called the Traveler. Like some sort of great cataclysm has occurred. Mm-hmm. I forget it's called the Change, or I forget exactly the actual term that it's given in.
It's called the Collapse.
The Collapse.
Before the Traveler
something bad
settles
happens.
over Earth.
Reality is not in a good place.
That was a Destiny joke, because the Travelers, the orb.
Oh, you picked the right group for that one to land with. I'm sure somewhere in the audience is...
No, Chia, the people who it was meant for received it, and they're thankful for that.
So, reality is collapsing, things are bad. You're this character, the Traveler, that goes back, and there's this setup where, well, honestly, lines up pretty neatly with Expedition 33. If you are a Traveler, if you're sent back or forward, I forget, not really clear in the story exactly how all that's working at the moment. Well, you're gonna die. You're just what's the phrase? What do they call it? Do you remember, Janet? What's the phrase in Expedition?
From Expedition?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
Come on, you know what I'm talking about,
blossoming?
Right?
It's called
it's
Gomage.
Not Gomage. No. It's the phrase they tell themselves of like, we're going to fail, but it's for the next group. To succeed.
For those who come after.
For those who come after.
Yeah.
Cronos: The New Dawn is in a new genre of for those who come after alikes, in which you're like coming across different other travelers who have attempted to investigate this sort of reality collapse to try and address it, to try and fix it. There is, I haven't watched the movie yet, but this horror film called Together. It's got Alison Brie and the non-sexual predator Dave Franco, right? I think that's right. James Franco.
Is that's the one where they're like...
Yeah, their eyes are like kind of merging in the poster. It's supposed to be really good.
Yeah, that seems cool.
Something happens where people start feeling like a bondness to one another. And because the main conceit of Cronos: The New Dawn is that when an enemy is killed, there's these sort of tentacles all around them. And if another enemy approaches them, they will merge. So a lot of the kind of dynamic of Cronos is getting into an arena, fighting an enemy, watching them hit the ground, and then either trying to make sure another enemy doesn't go near them, or using fire to dispense of the corpse, because the result is that they can sort of morph on to this creature and create something more powerful and faster. It's a pain in the butt. This game is 100% chasing after, following in the footsteps of Dead Space. Like, this game loves Dead Space, and it means that in a couple of different ways. Aesthetically, it's just like the suit design. When you're going to there's sort of these little hub areas to sort of upgrade your equipment. Just all of it is like, hey, I don't know where this game went into development relative to EA saying we're cool. We did one Dead Space remake. That's one of the best horror games of the last 10 years. We're just gonna peace out. We're just not gonna let that team make anything else, which is deeply unfortunate. That we're gonna follow in those footsteps, kind of put our own spin on it, though. And so, Cronos, the New Dawn is very much sort of a Dead Space alike, where you're managing different enemies, you're using fire, and I think the critical thing to point out about Cronos is this game's hard as fuck. This is a game where difficulty, challenge is critical to its identity. This is a game in which you are not going to min-max encounters. This is a game where I've played so many survival horror games, and within the first hour or two, you won't break the difficulty curve, but you can identify the tracks to get on to sort of mess with it. Dead Space, this was true in Dead Space, it's true in a lot of horror games. Like, hey, just like that base pistol, just like make sure you keep upping the damage output in that base pistol, and you'll have like a really killer like gun to rely on for the rest of the game while you sort of interact with the other weapons. In Cronos, no matter what I do, I seem to come out of most encounters near death with barely any ammunition and wondering, am I going to actually make it through the next encounter? This game has no difficulty modifiers. It has no story mode. You're not all, we were talking earlier about Hollow Knight. Huh?
Cronos?
Yeah.
It definitely has modifiers.
Where? For the difficulty?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I mean, it did in the, I remember like it having that when I previewed it, and it also has aim assist, which you can like turn on.
You can do aim assist.
Yeah, I
didn't notice anything.
Maybe it doesn't, and I hallucinated that from the preview. But I also will say, as a just quick interjection, while you're still kind of setting up, the preview was the beginning of the game, so I've played a lot of what you've played. But I went to start the official game, like I have the code, and I played some of that last night. It does feel harder than it did when I previewed it. Like genuinely, like I was doing, like I did, like my partner's much more versed in this genre of game and shooters and things, and like he was dying like quicker than me. He's like, "Can you kill these people?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "I did," and he's like, "How? Like, are you just better than me at the game?" I'm like, I played it once through already, but even me, like I was dying a lot more often than I had in the preview. I don't know if they literally did change anything.
It does
but that
not
did
appear.
Surprise me.
It does not appear that I'm looking at other people saying this. It seems like they did not have any type of difficulty selection in the full release.
I'll go double check it in between segments, but like they've given quotes to the press to an effect of like, we want a singular. We have a one single difficulty, and then the game just gets harder on New Game Plus if you choose to.
Yeah, maybe that was the case. I guess it's just that if you put the aim assist on, I do think it's like you can just
so to that point,
go right through it.
This, headshots extremely important. It's rare when I play these games that I'm actively thinking too much about weapon sway, because, well, like there'll be crates that I encounter like as I go through the game. Like I don't have to sweat, like one headshot missing. Like you sweat headshots missing in this game to a degree that I have not felt in a game like this in a long time. And the counter to that, be like, well, just take, the game will recommend, hey, well, shoot him out in the knees. You'll get, some extra time. Well, you've wasted a bullet. I know that you've actually put them on the ground, but you've also wasted a bullet because the other
if you even hit the knees.
If you even hit the knees. Because a lot of this game, much like Dead Space, you can punch and you can stomp. They might as well not exist in the game. Mm-hmm. They don't do any damage. I mean, they do. But they are functionally only really useful if an enemy ends up on the ground. You can stomp them once or twice to like get like a tiny bit of extra damage in, or there are sort of the weakest possible enemies that you can stomp them twice before they sort of start running around and you can take them out. But this is not a game where once the enemy has like if you miss the pistol shot, or whatever, the shotgun that you get like fairly in the game, if you miss those shots, they're going to come at you and they're going to take out 1/3 of your health in the first attack. And you can't like, unless I missed it, you can't spin 180. Like this is a common thing games like this have added where you like hold back and hit circle. Like on the
not
PlayStation
even
controller.
added. This is a classic to the genre. That's an old school like tank control standby.
Not here. So basically, like when an enemy comes at you and you're trying to figure out how do I reconfigure my spot in the space.
Right.
This game doesn't have like one of the most, I say basic, more expected features. And it's obviously a choice. Like I think it's, like you said, Ren, like that is just a thing that is in these games frequently, especially in tank control-esque games or games with like really slow player characters. Like, well, at least, sure, this is really kind of goofy how quick you're kind of spinning around. Not really, quote, realistic, but it gives the character a little bit of added mobility. And that's not here. And so missing that shot, these creatures running at you, is terrifying because you've fucked up in a number of ways. And so I'm like pretty mixed on the game. I think this game is like a really good 7 out of 10,
Yeah.
but like with a heavy emphasis on like the really good 7 out of 10. Like the combat is frequently repetitive and the encounters aren't that interesting. And like the enemy design, not that interesting. There's nothing equivalent to like cutting off limbs. Like the closest this game has is lighting the enemies on fire. But resources are so scarce, and you're constantly have to craft. This is a game where you are going to craft a lot. Oh, thank God there are chemicals or little gears that I can use to make a couple extra bullets. Or you can spend a bunch of resources and build yourself a little flame canister you can throw on the ground. Motherfucker, I need those 2 shotgun shells. Like, the enemies just won't come near that corpse that they might be able to eat and become more powerful. That's my home base. Nobody's coming near this guy, and I'll just take it out. And it makes for a really interesting dynamic because, again, similar to wondering about Silksong and how it's going to factor in or not factor in difficulty, changing in expectations in terms of how players get to customize their experience. Cronos, like, very specifically is saying up front, like, we're going to try and capture the feeling of a survival horror game, of what it has in those opening hours, and we're going to try and carry that forward further into the game. Maybe there are ways that if you are very resource, if you're just a little bit conservative in how you play, maybe you can start breaking that curve. But every time I feel like I've been on the cusp of like, all right, not that many shotgun bullets, but I'm going to have plenty of pistol bullets to kind of be a backup, some encounter goes horribly fucking wrong. And it's not even clear that if I was to do it again, that I'd have a better way of min-maxing it. Like, it's a testament to the game's combat counters, despite the enemy design being pretty bland and interesting, is that they're all kind of tyrant characters. Like, they're all kind of Jason Voorhees characters. Like, they're really mostly just these hulking figures coming at you. And if you screw that up, you come out of it not really looking at the situation going, well, if I just did that run again, I think I'd have 2 extra bullets. And so it makes for a really fascinating feel for a game in which I'm not that taken by the story, the enemy design, even the atmosphere is pretty horror standard. But its insistence on being difficult and unmoving and making the player sit with, well, you have no more crafting materials, you have 1 shotgun shell, you have 6 pistol bullets, and you can't craft any health, and like your red meter is going off in the corner. You've got 2 more rooms to get through before you're going to have any room to breathe. That's a cool space to be in. Like, it was making me sweat in ways I have not felt in a game like this in a while, and it was doing that way more through game design than it was through horror aesthetics. It wasn't because of jump scares. It wasn't because, and I like all that stuff, and all that stuff can sing together really well at times, but it was mostly extracting that from a pretty generic looking horror world, but just insisting on the fact that it's going to make me live in the space that I might feel like I'm on a knife's edge the entire time I'm playing, which is just fundamentally interesting because I've not played a game like this in some time.
How did you feel about the charge shot mechanic? Because that was kind of the big thing that stuck out to me during like my preview session, and that I kind of carried through in my main playthrough. Like, as someone that plays more of these games,
it's a really good point. So every gun has a charge up. So you can sort of hold down, R2 or the equivalent, and you can increase the charge speed by spending, resources to upgrade your weapons. But it takes like, I don't know, 2 seconds, like on default, like for this charge shot to occur. And the difference in damage output is so substantial. Like it is like it is like getting 2 bullets in one. But
I only do charge shots. I don't shoot my gun regularly.
Right, I really only shoot the regular bullets in a panic, right? Or if I'm like just trying to get one single headshot because I think they're on the edge of dying. But it makes the tension and the cost of failure, both emotionally and in terms of resource count, so much fucking worse when you're like, okay, all right, line up the headshot. They're coming at me. Charge, hold, and then when you miss, the feeling
it's giving hop
is
shot.
So it is, because so many things are about to go wrong. You're about to take a substantial, like you're going to lose a third of your health. You have wasted like a precious resource. And then you're going to have to like run around them and try and reset yourself, and just, you kind of need to do it. And yet doing so, it feels good. Like, again, the weapon sway is not something I think about a lot in video. It's frankly, when I play a game where, and this happens a lot in survival horror games, where you have different things attributes you can upgrade over the course of the game. I'm very rare. I'm doing weapon sway like late in the game when I've got I don't know. I guess it's costs too much to make the damage output go up, so I guess I'll reduce weapon sway. Whereas here, it's like, do I want to do 25 points more damage per shot? Or do I want that one shot to count a lot more or have more consistency? And that's a cool place to be with a game like this, because it's getting me to think differently about how I'm distributing the different resources that I have access to. And importantly, the resource, like the generic energy resource. There are 2 different resources. There are cores. And cores are what you use to upgrade like the vitality on your suit and like your inventory slots. Then there is energy, and energy is what you use to upgrade your different weapon attributes, like how much damage they do, clip size, etc. Then there are chemicals, which you use to craft like new bullets or new like stim shots, like what they call like the health packs of the game. And then there are gears, and the gears combine to, like, it's like an escalation of resource. Like, okay, you can do pistol shots with just chemicals, but to do shotgun shells you need chemicals and a little bit of these gears. And then to do like a
flame
firebomb
thing, it's like 3 gears.
Yeah, like 3 gears. And so like you can also use energy to buy additional base resources, right? Like if you don't want to craft bullets because you want to spend those chemicals and gears on fire to do like sort of corpse management, well, then you can spend energy on like getting additional bullets. But then that also means you're taking away from like what you can upgrade the weapons and like move that system along. Like I decided early on, like these cores that like upgrade the core parts of the character are few and far between. You don't come across many of them very often. And you can only carry one fire attack at once, whether it's crafted or one dispensed out of if you're in a like sort of a hub area in a safe spot, there's a dispensary that'll give you one of these fire grenades. Well, I thought it said, do you want to upgrade from 1 to 2? I was like, holy shit, yeah, like that's 2 cores. That's a lot of cores. There's so many of the things I can invest in. But having 2 fire things at once, well, I could just keep running back and forth from like the hub area, help clear out spaces, and just make moving through an area easier. I don't know, I didn't read the text properly, and instead I spent 2 cores on you can have one from the dispensary and then you can craft another one. But I never want to spend my resources on crafting. So I basically spent 2 cores, vital elements in the game's economy, on something that I'm never going to do. It made me sad. But I also think it's a testament to the game because it made me sad about a resource I used 90 minutes into the game, which is just like not usually the sense that you like, I've not made a catastrophic decision, but I have made the next 3 hours of this game harder till I can scrape back those cores and move in a different direction. And I think that is, I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but I think it is fucking cool. And I have enjoyed that part about it.
Nice. Yeah, I think I'm going to keep playing it. I definitely am going to leave. I'm going to rock that aim assist because I just can't do it. It does feel a little harder than when I first like previewed it. And I think what's unique to this structure of like survival horror is so often in survival horror games, there is the option to kind of just like run right through it, right? It's like, okay, if you can kind of weave out of a situation, you don't have to like necessarily shoot anybody. Maybe it makes it harder to loop back if you need to, which you often do in these games. But especially in like the early sections of Cronos, the construction is either like wider than you expect or narrower than you needed, where they like very early they set you, and also the respawn spots are just far apart enough that you're a little annoyed, which I think they kind of maybe do on purpose to
I think they want you to avoid min-maxing combat encounters, which is like a very frequent thing you'll do in games like this, especially in the age of autosave, where, hey, like every time I move through a room, I'm going to see something, some goofy symbol, spin in the corner. It's like, okay, I can now approach this room as a discrete room and see how it goes. Cronos frequently is like, I just played 12 minutes of this game. And I don't like how this fight ended, but to try it again would mean doing the fights I already felt good about again, which could go wrong very easily, and then hoping the one that I'm unsatisfied with goes better. Do I really want to try that 12 minutes again, or just press forward? And frequently the game is kind of saying you should just press forward.
Yeah, but it does put you in a lot of, again, arena, which I knew this from my preview as well, but like a lot of arena-y situations where it's like you actually do have to do this. You can't just say, well, I'm going to save bullets by just running past this, because like you literally can't.
It has a chime.
You're gonna have to figure it out.
It has an arena chime that like lets you know. But was it Gears of War that would do that, where like you would hear like the chainsaw that like lets you know, like they had a little ding like when a combat encounter was over and you knew that things were cool. A lot of games do stuff like this, but it's a little funny to have it in a game like that. Like not every combat encounter does it, but the ones you're talking about where like you're about to be in a lockbox and have to take out 3 or 4 enemies as you work through the encounter, when it finishes, the game is almost like sending out a signal like, okay, it's cool, like you've survived, like you can move on to the next thing. The other thing this game does that I think is interesting, that is obviously very deliberate and pushes against basically everything that these games have been doing in the past 10-ish years. I remember when Resident Evil 2 came out, which is such an excellent survival horror game on its own merits, beyond just being like a really great reinterpretation of Resident Evil 2. One of the things that I remember Austin and I talking about that was like so satisfying in that game is how it lets you indulge in your inner checklist monster, which is to say, when you go into a room, if there's a resource in it, that room is marked red. And then once you've got all those resources, once you're a greedy little goblin and like got everything that's in there, it's blue. You are safe to move on to the next section. There's no map in this game. It's a much more linear experience. There's, at least in the areas I've played, of like, you're going to go to the next thing. And sometimes you get to a spot where like, well, there's kind of 3 little spots you could go to. But once you finish with those 3 spots, like we're moving forward. It's a much narrower level design than something like Resident Evil 2 or a lot of Resident Evil games in which or even Silent Hill 2, the most recent Bloober game, in which like, hey, here's a bigger space and you're kind of working your way through it. It means it's like super easy to miss resources in this game, because there's no way to retrace your steps and feel any sort of confidence that you've cleared everything out, other than just, I guess I've explored every room. And combine that with, I don't know how this game does resource distribution, right? So the way survival horror games have evolved, right? Like, so they originate with, like, you just find the designers put ammo and resources across the game world, and it actually is possible for you to screw yourself over if you don't manage those resources correctly. Eventually, like, that switches over to, well, we're going to spawn what you need in, like, small chunks to make sure that like you can always have something to progress. It's like really unclear to me what Cronos does. And I mean that both like that's mean to me, the player, and having any sense of calm, but also complimentary to the game and its desire to keep the tension alive. Because the amount of times, you motherfucker of a game, there are a decent number of yellow crates in this game. You'll come across them fairly often. The amount of times you open one and there's jack shit in it is
nasty.
As high as I have seen in a video game in some time. Usually the yellow crate means I'm going to smash that bitch and there's going to be 6 bullets in there and we're all going to be happy. I would say it's 50-50. I'd say half the time you open something in Cronos, there's absolutely nothing in it except your hope and dignity being smashed alongside the wood that you have crushed underneath your foot. Like, you'll open up, you'll go into a room, it's like 3 crates, we're cooking. These designers knew that this encounter was here, and I was going to have a harder time with it, harder than the other ones. They accounted for it. Big old punch. Why is there nothing in any of those boxes? And I don't know, is the game's threshold, right? Is its floor for what it determines to be, I need to give you something so much lower than my expectation or what I've been sort of trained on in a lot of these games in recent years? Or is it handling it in a way that I can't figure out the pattern. I can't read the resource distribution. And again, I think it's a compliment to the game. I think it'll prove like polarizing or put people off. But it's really deliberate and really interesting. And every time I encountered it, it like actually made me laugh. I'm like, you sons of bitches. I cannot believe that like 3 boxes produced absolutely jack shit after I got my ass kicked in that encounter. But it's really interesting. It is kind of unlike anything I have played in a hot minute, because usually games with a budget like this, even if it's not as big as a Resident Evil game, you get the sense that they'd be okay if you put the controller down. Like, there's not a real sense of like, we want to make sure that you keep moving along. And that is contrary to a lot of survival horror game design in the last 10 years, even though the genre's title would suggest in some way that it should be harder than it is. But I think survival horror has gotten easier and less frictionless over the last 10 years. But Cronos does not agree and does not go in that direction. So yeah, I'm looking forward to playing more of it. I'm going to keep going. But I will, I discovered the fact that you couldn't change the difficulty midway when I was like, I think I'm scared and maybe I might want to do this section on a lower difficulty. And the game said, well, there's not an option. I was like, oh.
The aim assist is there whenever you want it,
Patrick. The aim assist is there. I'm going to try and keep trucking. Because the aim assist would make, if you're hearing all this and thinking, well, it's not for me. If you could nail every headshot, you functionally would be putting this game on a
and you can
easier difficulty. Because headshots are going to make you spend half the amount of resources. I mean, like, that's part of how this game is managing you to keep you in a scarcity territory, is a sense that you are gonna miss 1/3 of your shots, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so if you're not gonna miss 1/3 of your shots, then you could probably introduce that, like, break that resource curve, or at least make it so you're not scrounging nearly as much. So if you want to check this out, that is the thing you want to tinker with if you're worried that the game is too hard and there's no story mode equivalent, because it really does seem like the game is engineered around headshots, and if you can't hit them, which the game doesn't want you to, then I think you're right to follow Janet's Janet's advice.
There's no shame over here. Rocking with that medium level. It also is
There's no
nice that it is
shame.
a slider.
Embrace
it's not
it,
just
embrace
an on. It's not just an on or off, which is kind of nice. Like I might to kind of still get a feel for the actual like friction of the game. Maybe I'll like split the difference and put it more on like a low, just so that I'm doing a little something.
Yeah.
And also, I don't mind not having a try. Like, hey, like, I'm just kind of because also survival. It's funny both are setting up here because obviously you're the survival horror guy and I'm just like a guy, you know. I'm just who's like playing one of these games. So I am kind of more of a vibes, puzzles. The scares and the combat are cool, but that's kind of more of my like survival horror zone anyway. So it's like, well, really, you know, we'll kind of see. What I'm cautiously optimistic about is like some more interesting like level design with like the little time warp puzzle things. I'm guessing that's not ever going to get wildly interesting. But it's also
Apparently
not a
this
terribly
game
long
has
game
straight up
either.
zero G sections the way Dead Space did. I just haven't.
But that was the worst part of Dead Space. That was the worst part of Dead Space.
They were better in the
flying.
remake. They were much better in the remake. But yes,
I was
there
gonna
was
say,
which
but I
is
really think
baffling
that those
to
zero
me.
G sections like rule. I think that those are some of the strongest parts of the original Dead Space and the remake.
That's wild to
They're
me
so
because
nasty.
they feel completely unwieldy in a way that I think is bad. I hated those parts. And when people were like, it was worse than the original, I was like, that's wild because it still sucks. So that is shocking to hear. But I'm happy for you. We both got through it anyway. It doesn't really matter.
It would suck so bad to be in a zero G space with a guy who wants to kill you. It would suck so bad. I would hate it so much. It would be it's one of the worst situations I can frankly imagine. I'm just stuck there spinning. Because I would fuck up. I would move my arms wrong. You move your arms like a little bit wrong, you're just spinning.
Yeah.
Well, Dead Space always did the thing, both in the original and the remake, where, I acknowledge, Janet, that, like, the frustration, but I think they wanted you to feel like an ass as you're, like, going through the sections. And every time you have to shoot
outside the ship. That's the part I didn't like. The inside, when you're inside the ship, with the general level design zero G stuff, I don't have a problem with. There's like a boss where you're like outside of the ship. Flying around, I thought that was bad. The other stuff I didn't have beef with.
That boss was not good in the original, and it's not great.
Okay, because the other stuff I don't have beef with. Like I don't
God,
mind going.
Okay, all right, then we're on the same page.
Because I was gonna say, probably the most vivid memory I have of the Dead Space remake is of that one. There's that one circular room where it has the guys who just have the arms and they jump at you.
Yeah.
That room where you're stuck in zero G and there's like 4 of them. Horrible, disgusting, terrible room.
Well, especially there's like different colored variants of those enemies. It's like the black ones like get like so, like just so fucking mean and like fast. And in those sections, the thing that always make me, I'd be mad at myself and the game, but I'd also laugh. It's the enemies that have like the 2 sort of like tentacles, like that come out like spread out 3 like side by side, like diagonally and in the center, and like lining up your shot to like get to cut those things off was so hard, but every time you missed, it's like, someone was laughing when they designed this encounter because they knew this was going to happen.
I think I need to vocalize just like real quick into this microphone.
Please.
Somebody make a survival horror game again, because it's happened before, but we need to go back, Vern, to survival horror games that are largely about traps. That are largely about laying little devices. Because there's nothing better than laying a little device and being like, oh, I hope this shit works. Oh my god. Like laying a little trap and then turning around to rifle through the rest of the room being like, well, I hope that goes off. That's the energy I need. Because the thing is that, like, I think actually, Janet, you kind of touched on this. Like, so many survival horror games can just be solved by shooting good. They are so easily and quickly solved through that mechanism that I think that, frankly, like, this is why I'm increasingly against execution difficulty as the primary mechanism for getting players to experience an emotion. I think that execution difficulty can be used, but making it the primary mechanism is just wildly unreliable because player skill and what types of mechanical interfaces people are going to use are so wildly divergent, which is why resource pressure, that feeling that Patrick was talking about of like leaving every encounter being like, is so like load bearing to the genre, and like somebody's got to do it. I gotta see more traps, folks.
But do it with traps.
More shitty tripwires. Let me throw
Oh,
some
man.
broken
I
glass
think,
on
Dead
the
Space
floor.
was so good at that with like putting down little weird mines. It's like, wow, this is a weird weapon, but
Or
Sure.
like being a fan in Dead Space, where it's like I just carry the fan blades from room to room. I think the thing that like
did that
that's
every
missing
time.
from all these like, and it's funny. I kind of almost hate that Kronos is in that Dead Space conversation because I just think they're wildly different games. I think
They are.
it looks like Dead Space if you like take certain glances. Like you have big helmet, like Dead Space is one big helmet stomp, but like that's not Dead Space though. That's just Dead Space. Like if you walk in a room and you see your partner playing Dead Space, yeah, you might see something that kind of looks like Kronos. But the actual act of playing Dead Space is so different than that it kind of sucks that they're even in the same conversation because it's not going to be a fair one because Dead Space is Dead Space, and this game's a different game that's also not trying to be Dead Space. But
Right.
the thing that I was going to mention with that is like, as we're talking about like reminiscing on Dead Space, which I played it for the first time through that remake, something that is so specific to Dead Space is the humor within the horror, which like Dead Space is not the only horror game to like invoke humorous moments by any means. I mean, freaking Resident Evil has that freaking Crash Bandicoot scene in the 2 remake, so it's like, yeah, that's definitely happened before. But that's such a core part of why I love Dead Space because it let you be shitty in ways that were still fun and interesting. Like I am not, I don't have like great shooter skills. I don't have great survival skills, but I do have a fan blade and telekinesis. And I'm going to take that as far as it lets me go. I can throw things. I can I can sort of drag something out. And I think, this kind of gets back to like what you were saying, Ren, about like having different levels of player expression. I feel like Dead Space is one of the most expressive games in that regard, where when people watch me play it, you've never seen gameplay like this semi-negative, but it works. But
Right.
it works. And I think that is beautiful and cool and exciting. And I still get the same, end feelings. Like the result is the same. We all kind of feel similarly about the game. We had similar experiences playing the game, even though our styles are very, very different. Which I don't think can kind of be the case in Kronos, even though I do think it puts you into some fun, like, arena situations that do, like, influence how I play in a way that's more than just land the shots, unless I turn on the aim assist and then I can kind of just land the shots. But that is kind of the fun of it, where it just kind of puts you in these corners, and that's kind of the extent of its main intrigue, because the rest is a little generic, but it's also kind of cozy in that sense too. Like, it doesn't necessarily need to be this, fantastic, like, revolutionary game in the genre, because it is kind of nice to have those familiar elements too. Still should be a point against the game because it doesn't limit its scope of how good it can be, but there's something kind of just nice about being in a survival horror space where you can kind of explore and tinker and be surprised by things coming out of the walls.
I think one of the hard things is that just like I don't know, the thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is I was talking about this on stream. I streamed for like 4 hours the other day, and like during that I rambled for a little bit about I'm trying to like, I'm sure there's a better term for this and someone will probably tell me at some point, which would be very helpful. But to use the thing I've been using colloquially, like mechanical fidelity, like not like visual fidelity, right? But like how intricately modeled is a system, how detailed is its interactions, right? How much can the player actually do within that space? For example, UFO 50, right? UFO 50 games are relatively high in mechanical fidelity, but relatively low in visual fidelity. Systemically complex, reminiscent of modern game design trends, a lot of player expressivity, room for mechanical development and play, right? And the thing that I find really interesting about this tier of game right now, the like AA space, is that right now we're seeing a lot of developers either heavily commit to visual or mechanical fidelity in that space, and it's really one or the other, I think, in a lot of ways right now. I'm thinking here about like Clair Obscur to a different extent, but there are a couple of games right now in that AA space that like I really think could benefit from adding a little bit more systemic depth to like push themselves to like distinct, because that's really what distinguishes in the play experience, AA from AAA is like the types of systems you're going to be interacting with, right? That is so frequently how we like decide whether or not a game is feels creative, feels inventive, is whether or not the systems we actually touch feel like that, whether they feel like they are allowing like a new level of expressivity. And I'm like really excited to see the next generation of hopefully next generation of titles like the Cronoses, like the I'm trying to think of another good example from recent memory, but that kind of add the types of weirder mechanics that you would see in B games of the past. I'm thinking here about like Japanese horror games like Clock Tower, right? Like weird horror stuff that like you just don't see anymore. I would love to start seeing that again at like the AA level, instead of this focus on a lot of like visual fidelity.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, the Resident Evil games are still doing some interesting. I'm still pretty hopeful the next Resident Evil game is going to be interesting, but also you can tell they're very proud of how the game looks, and that is just different than being systemically, mechanically interesting. I think Resident Evil finds a decent balance between those two things, but I'm hopeful a game like Cronos is successful because I just like to see more games experiment like this. I think like Resistance 2, again, I'm a firm believer in like if this game patched in difficulty settings next week and because like sales were soft and they're like we want more people to play it, like more power to you, man, but like it's fine. But I like the guiding light that they have. Like I like the way that everything, like there's Cronos doesn't, I don't know how many weapons are in the game, but like it starts off very quickly and says like, hey, your D-pad up, down, left, right, kind of suggests there's going to be 4. And like the weapons aren't that interesting. It's a pistol that powers up. It's a shotgun that powers up. We're not talking about a game in which, hey, you're going to get these base level weapons and there's going to be a ton of customizability, like they're going to function differently based on different parts you find. Nothing about the game suggests that like that's going to happen. It really feels like you're going to get 4 pretty straightforward weapons. They're going to function in a very specific and straightforward way. Just do it. And if you don't do it, like nothing else will save you. And that's a really kind of interesting, there's a clarity in that where there's not like really build diversity. Like, yeah, sure, I guess you could make the damage output higher, like change the weapon sway and things like that. But ultimately, it's like the pistol's the pistol, the shotgun is the shotgun. And it's like, bro, just aim it. And it's like that hard. And it's like, okay, well, that's a choice, and I think it's an interesting one. So, I'm higher on Cronos than I expected to be, and so I am looking forward to playing more.